All right, so we are going to get started. Welcome everybody to Quincy Climate Action Network's Candidates Night. Ooh, yeah, there we go. There we go. All right, my name is Brandon Lamb. I'm one of the QCAN board members. I'd like to start by thanking everyone for coming. Looks like we have a great turnout tonight. And especially would like to thank our city council candidates who are campaigning for your vote on November 4th. 14 of the 17 candidates running for city council are here to share their views with you, and we thank them for our time. So just a quick introduction on who we are. Quincy Climate Action Network is an all-volunteer organization that promotes environmentally friendly practices among residents, businesses, and government. We work in areas such as clean energy, sustainable transportation, and responsible waste management. QCAN usually meets on the second Wednesday of each month at 7 p.m. Visitors and new members are always welcome to attend. Our next meeting will be next Wednesday, October 15th, on the first floor meeting room of the Thomas Crane Library. Our meetings are hybrid, so people can join in person or on Zoom. If you want to learn more about QCAN, or if you want to join our mailing list, or if you want to attend the next meeting, please visit our info table at the side of the room over there, right where Christian's holding up his hand. Tonight, our candidates will share their views on climate and environmental issues. Because we have such a great turnout of candidates tonight, we're splitting the event into 3 sessions. The first session, moderated by QCAN board member Jen Graham, will feature Ward 2 candidate Richard Ash, Ward 5 candidates Dan Minton and Maggie McKee, and Ward 6 candidate Deb Riley, and will last 30 minutes. The second session, moderated by QCAN board member Keith Johnson, will feature Ward 3 candidates Walter Hubley and Kathy Thrun, and Ward 4 candidate James Devine and Virginia Ryan, and will last 30 minutes. The third session, moderated by QCAN board member Gina Favada, will feature all of our at-large candidates, Scott Campbell, Noel DeBona, Ann Mahoney, Andrew Pham, Herbert Ali Shaughnessy III, and Zetiang Susan Yuan, and will last 45 minutes. 1 week ago, we sent the candidates all of the possible questions in advance, along with background information about these issues. All candidates received these questions via email at the same time. In each session, candidates will be asked a subset of these questions. These questions come from both QCAN members and Quincy residents in general. Candidates, we have a packed agenda tonight, so we'll have to limit responses to 1.5 minutes. If you hear this bell ring, there we go. Your time is up, and we ask you to quickly wrap up what you're saying so that your fellow candidates can also respond. Finally, we're recording the event. The video will be available to view on qcan.org and will soon be on qatv.org as well. Thank you, QATV, for filming tonight. And all right, so without further ado, let's get started with the first session.
Thanks, Brandon. So our first question is focused on transportation policy and plans. So the first question is, many residents are looking for safer, more convenient, and low-carbon ways to get around the city. Would you support the development of a comprehensive mobility plan that prioritizes walkability and expands options like public transit, biking, and other alternatives? What are your ideas for improving mobility for everyone in the city? And for this first question, why don't we start with Councillor Ash, and we will just work our way down the panel.
Great, thank you, Jen. This question revolves around safe streets and spaces for everyone. I represent Ward 2 in the city of Quincy. Most of you would know that as Quincy Point, Faxon Park, and Penns Hill. You'll notice Quincy Ave with the repavement and the reconfiguration. With the bike lanes, we're in the second iteration of the bike lanes on Quincy Ave. We now have bike lanes on Washington Street. Both projects that are welcomed, certainly to share the road with everybody that needs to use it. I look forward to progressing those same incentives down Southern Artery, especially where we have 1,000 Southern Artery and seniors in wheelchairs and scooters, walkers, and certainly with the repaving of Southern Artery this year by National Grid, making sure that we're all sharing the road in the same way, or dare I say, in the same way as Quincy Ave and Washington Street. Similarly, I make sure to keep up with Quinn Cycles and follow any of the initiatives and promote anything or any of their events and programs. I look forward to advocating for and doing more research into bringing the ferry back to the bridge. Many of you know that is could certainly be a Herculean effort, but I have begun the process of looking into the breakdown of that relationship with the MBTA and the city. Was that that was quick. Okay, all right. Thank you. Just pass it down.
Sure. There's also another microphone.
Sure. It's up to you, Maggie.
Hi, I'm Maggie McKee, running for Ward 5 City Council. So actually one of the things that I have heard a lot when I've been door knocking through the ward is people's concerns about safety for pedestrians, bikers, runners. And so I love this question because I think it sort of ties in so many different areas, and it can be safety, but also climate. So one of the things that I would really love to do is to bring more engagement from the community. And so we have groups like Quinn Cycles, like Quincy Climate Action Network, that really think about these things. And I would love to have groups of people who are like little citizen councils that we could draw on their expertise, because I've actually met 2 traffic engineers just in Ward 5 as I've been door knocking. So we have a wealth of resources, so I would love to do that. Another thing that I've been thinking about, especially with all these big developments in the works, is to think about vans. In the Asian community, you'll see a lot of white vans that go around. There's like a little parallel transportation system there, and I really think we should understand how that works and try to put something like that in place, especially going between senior housing and some of the new developments, so that we can keep more cars off the road. Okay, yeah, let's go by that.
Good evening. My name is Dan Minton. I'm the Ward 5 City Councilor. When I saw this question, I realized that I was going to be answering it in a law enforcement mode. I did 40 years as a police officer. I think the City of Quincy has a pretty solid mobility action plan. MBTA bus service covers much of the city, and the subway system is improving. These services make the city walkable overall. T-Pile does a nice job of tending to the recommendations of councilors and citizens, whether it be a new crosswalk or timing of a pedestrian light. The ferry service is a nice alternative to driving. Expanding the night hours would make it more popular. And one suggestion I would make is for the bus going to Squantum to make stops at the ferry terminal. I bike all over the city, and I appreciate the marked lanes, but it's an old city. In many cases, it's not safe to put in continuous lanes. The mass move over law requires a 4-foot distance when passing a bicycle. Many of the roads are so narrow that would force vehicles into the opposite lane. Bike lanes on secondary streets are preferable. What you see coming from Boston and coming to Quincy is an increase in e-bikes using bike lanes. Some of these go as fast as 40 miles an hour. Roads like the newly paved Southern Artery are scheduled to have bike lanes, and this will go a good distance. They have plenty of space. Buses now have bike carriers. The subway system allows bikes on it, and the Squantum Ferry system is open to bringing bikes with you. Thank you.
Hi, good evening. My name's Deborah Riley. I am the candidate for Ward 6 City Councilor, and I like to make use of all modes of transportation. I am, like Dan, we run into each other quite frequently, actually, at Squantum Point Park on our bicycles. I like to walk everywhere as a means of exercise and to improve my mental health. And I've taken the ferry, so I do think that we have some good transportation options, and it's really more kind of tying them together. I equally have concerns about some of the motorized vehicles, or whatever you want to call them, the scooters and the e-bikes. When I'm walking, I feel like they can be a lot faster, and I think we need to put some regulations around that. But one of the things I think we need to all agree on, if we're all here tonight for QCAN, is that climate change is a real problem. So there are definitely people who do not think that there's even a reason to address this. I definitely believe that it is a problem, and it needs to be addressed by, changes in behavior, and we just need to find a way to make things work sort of together. I'm not sure I can say that bike lanes are necessarily the answer, but certainly in some of the more busier areas, it would be nice to have some dedicated space for those vehicles, whatever they are. So I like to take advantage of everything that's available, and I think Quincy's a very good city for that sort of thing. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, candidates. So for our next question, I'd like to start with Ms. McGee, and then again, we will make our way down the panel. So this question is focused on waste. Diverting food waste saves money, reduces issues with rodents, creates rich soil for local farms, and also reduces greenhouse gas emissions. Currently, the city has a pilot program in place with Black Earth for individual households, and the city has a food waste diversion program for both high schools and Atlantic Middle School. Would you support expanding the food waste diversion program across all schools in the district? Would you support investment in a citywide program for food waste collection for individual homes? Thank you.
Yes, yes, yes. So I'm excited for this question because a few years ago, I was actually on the board of QCAN. I'm not anymore. I didn't hear anything about this beforehand, but as part of that work, we were trying to get composting, a food waste task force started. And so we did. And so I chaired that, and Ann Mahoney was also serving on it. And we went to all these different locations, and we learned how all the different ways of dealing with food waste. But basically, food waste can really impact our greenhouse gas emissions because it's a very heavy thing. Food is very water heavy, and so what happens with our trash is it goes to be burned up to produce energy, but it's so water heavy that it takes energy to burn it, and so it's really inefficient. And it's heavy, so it costs more when they weigh it at the tipping fee. So anyway, we can save money on tipping fees. We can improve our greenhouse gas emissions. All of these things, it's just a win-win-win. And so I love the idea. Some other cities locally are doing this, Cambridge, Boston. I would love to expand our program. Oh, sorry. Okay.
For many residents, money is tight, and paying a separate fee for Black Earth is difficult for some. For schools, according to AI, 39 pounds of food waste and 29 cartons of milk per student are thrown away each year. Vegetables and fruits are being wasted more frequently. One of my daughters used to work in the school system as a nutritionist, and she would verify if she was here how much waste is thrown from vegetables and fruit. Some school systems require that students take the food items even if they don't want them. Solving the problem would reduce the amount of waste. Donating food to places like Interfaith, where I volunteer, goes a long way too. As for a citywide program for food waste collection, I would support voluntary disposal be brought to the DPW on a trial basis. If this program is a success, I would then consider house-to-house pickup. The city also subsidized the costs associated with setting up a new curbside collection account with Black Earth. We're approaching close to 300 residents who signed up for this program. They will enjoy additional savings when the threshold is achieved. The city also makes available the Earth Machine backyard composters utilizing a grant from the Mass DEP. They are available to all citizens at DPW for $25, and on average, 80 to 100 residents take advantage of this program annually. Thank you.
Thank you. I love seeing all the Black Earth composting bins outside. There's certainly quite a few of them in Squantum, but I can appreciate that if it's a multi-unit building, it's probably not as practical to do it. What I would like to see is that we really work on reducing the amount of food that is thrown away. I mean, that is really a tragedy. And I'm glad to see that there's composting in the schools, but like Dan mentioned, I would like to see a way to try to reduce the food that is not being eaten and find a way that we can cut back on that. But I definitely support it. I'd like to make it easy and as cost effective as possible for as many people to participate that want to. You know, I never like the idea of anything being mandatory. The minute you make something mandatory, people put up a lot of resistance. But I think there's a lot more people that would take advantage of the program if we made it a little more accessible, did a little bit more advertising on it, and made it easy for people to participate. Thank you.
Thank you for the question. Earlier this year, I met with one of your board members, Brandon Lamb, about the Black Earth Composting Initiative and how I could help certainly plug that and try to get more people involved and spread the word on what Black Earth does, what the pilot program is, and the participation needed to take it up to the next level. I certainly agree with all of the other candidates up here with me tonight. I also wanted to take the chance to highlight something that I am proud of that accomplished in my first term, and that was bringing the Wasted Earth porta potties to the city. The Wasted Earth, if anybody's noticed, the orange porta potties at city events. Shyam Shukla is one of my constituents and the Boston manager of Wasted Earth. They turn human waste into fertilizer, and they have a number of amazing progressive green initiatives. So I originally booked Wasted for Quincy Pride, and they were a huge hit, and similarly then turned that contact over to the city, and I'm very proud to see that those porta potties being used at city events, and I believe they were even at the event this last weekend. So while not related to food waste, I wanted to take that opportunity to agree with my fellow candidates, but also to highlight that initiative, and certainly as something that I'm very proud of. Thank you.
Great, thank you, candidates. Our next question will focus on resiliency, and Councillor Minton, we'd like to start with you. Quincy is very vulnerable to the impacts of climate change and rising sea levels. Several city wards rely on causeways or other low-lying areas for connection to the mainland. And some roads, including Newport Ave, already experience sunny day flooding. What measures or ideas will you support to make Quincy more resilient to the effects of climate change and rising sea levels?
Thank you for the question. With the seas rising, one action to take is to use the Alert Quincy system, local newspapers and radio stations to update people who are planning on traversing these areas. And if no routes are available, to adjust plans. When this occurs, such as in Squantum, emergency management has a plan for multiple agencies, including but not limited to the police, fire, ambulance, and DPW. They double up the amount of resources because they're contained. Newport Ave is built on swampland and affected by high tides and storm surges. With Newport Avenue, there are other roads to be taken. Each time the roadway is done due to warping and sinking, it's been rebuilt. It takes time to rebuild the road and to elevate its pilings. This would be an option for the causeway too. Controlling flood concerns are what the Sales Home Pond, the Princess Eve Marsh, and the Blacks Creek tidal gates are meant to prevent. I went out to Squantum School for a ceremony today, and I happened to be out there when the king tide was there. And although there was no east wind or a storm, you could see the water probably 3 to 4 feet below the roadway. This has to be a concern. Something has to be done.
Yeah, this is certainly an area that affects my ward. Squantum has experienced some high tide events that have left us stranded, which I've been in Squantum for 25 years, and I'd heard it happened in the past, but it had been mitigated by raising the causeway. And same with Marina Bay, and certainly the area near Atlantic Middle School. They've all experienced, record high flooding, not even from a storm, just, moon cycles. It's crazy. But I do think the city's done a good job of at least predicting them, like we have now with a full moon, and providing some signage and being prepared to shut down the roadway. I'm not sure we're going to be able to hold back a tide. And I think one of the things we need to think about is, addressing it in our building. When we're building, we really need to think about where the impact is going to be for runoff. I mean, we're building out to every corner of a lot and allowing no green space. And, there are some water mitigations that are put in place, but, how long will those last before they're ineffective for some reason because of the rising tide? So this is definitely an area that my ward is affected quite a bit. And what I'd like to see is that the city council committee, the environmental and health committee be brought back to life. It has not met since April of 2019, and it is chaired by my opponent, who is not here this evening. So I pledge to be available, I pledge to do the work, and I pledge to be available to my constituents. Thank you.
Thank you for the question, Jen. While you may not think of Quincy Point as one of the coastal areas in the city, certainly we have beaches and neighborhood beaches. Those are lower in topography, lower in elevation, but the flooding issues that I do see, which I haven't seen before, quite frankly, that were of this magnitude until this summer, is in the Elm Street, Bigelow, Town Brook, behind the old Quincy Chamber of Commerce building. It just so happens that some flash flooding in that area over the second week of July occurred at the exact same time that we were reviewing a proposal to rehab Dennis Sweeney's funeral home for apartments. And that is serendipitous in a way, because the proposal had to go to the Conservation Commission, and we took that opportunity to address a number of the Town Brook remediation efforts over the years. Certainly the last time, and what can occur next. That led to the inclusion of $100,000 in the last capital improvement plan from DPW for some work over there. I'm hopeful that will help with the flooding, but certainly look forward to advancing some of the Town Brook initiatives that I don't think have been touched upon and maybe in recent years, and make sure that the flooding over there is calmed and that it doesn't rise to the same level that I saw it rise to this summer. Thank you. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, excuse me. So with climate change, our seas are going to keep rising, and being a coastal community, we really have a lot to think about. But some of the areas I think we could look into would be protecting our marshes, and also making sure that we don't put impervious surfaces where the water can't flow. We try to have as many rain gardens, and kind of taking advantage of green infrastructure that we can to make that so that this water has some place to go. Other things we can do, because it actually has a real big impact on people's lives. I think it was back in 2018 when there was that really huge flood and people had to be brought out with boats. And so I know there's been questions about development in coastal areas, and other communities are thinking about changing zoning rules so that there might be more restrictions put in certain areas that are going to be hit by those floods, because we don't want to have people dying, in these floods that are supposed to happen only once every 100 years, but they're happening much more often now. So some of those, we could think about changing height limits for houses. We could maybe think about limiting expansion of existing structures in those areas. Okay.
Thank you, candidates. For our final question, we're going to pivot and ask you a more personal question. And Ms. Riley, we will start with you. What do you personally do to help reduce your climate footprint? For example, have you opted up to 100% renewable with the Quincy Community Electricity Program? Have you installed heat pumps or solar panels? Do you compost or drive EV or hybrid vehicle? Tell us how you are a good environmental steward in your own lives.
I love that question. Do I have to answer all of them? No, we definitely are almost a little hoarding-like in terms of our hanging on to things and trying to make use of things and reusing and reducing and recycling when necessary. So I think as a household, we do it at a very micro level. I mean, it's just day-to-day stuff. And I do not drive an electric vehicle only because I keep my cars for at least 10 years. So the next one will at least be a hybrid, but until this one dies, I'm sticking with my fossil fuel car. And I can't remember what the other questions were, forgive me. But we do try to just, reduce wherever we can, reuse things, fix things when we can. We don't replace things. I think we've become a very disposable society, which is really unfortunate. Most of us, I think, grew up with one, maybe two televisions in our lifetime. When we grew up, my mother had the same washing machine, I think, my entire life. And now everything just isn't really made to last. And I think we need to get back to trying to, fix things and hang on to things and not replace things just because they're cheap and easy to do. And I just continue to do that. It becomes more of just a day-to-day lifestyle of, just trying to figure out how you can get the most use out of the things you have, which also saves you a lot of money. So that's probably more my motivation, but it's good to be able to do that. Thank you.
Thank you. A few years ago, I replaced my poor efficiency gas boiler with a 98.7% efficiency unit. I recycle weekly and I donate textiles and items I no longer use. I had an energy assessment done at my home and received more insulation, programmable thermostats, and energy-saving light bulbs. I have 4 heat zones in my house and shut them off when not in use. I am an avid bicycle rider. When I can, I bypass my car to do local errands or visit friends. As counselor, I often meet with constituents at their residence or a mutual place, and I take my bike to encourage others to do the same. I don't know about this one. So I threw the question to my kids, my adult kids, and one of them reminded me that I once had the clapper. The clap on, clap off. And so I shut a lamp off, and so I was ahead of the curve. Thank you.
All right, thanks for the question, Jen. How do I employ these initiatives in my everyday life? The lack of plastic water bottles, recycling, a Mass Saves Home Energy audit. Similar to candidate Riley, I am driving the current car I have until the wheels fall off, but after that, I look forward to a hybrid or an EV, promoting and participating in initiatives like Cleaner Greener Quincy and the Household Hazardous Waste Day, which is October 18th from 8 to noon. Also help promote these ideals and initiatives, and I will push off turning the heat on until the last possible second. But Jen, I might need you to talk to my fiance for me on that one. These questions are great. I was saying before we started that they force us to write down notes and think about the issues, and even things that you employ in your day-to-day life. You might not realize that until you're forced to take notes on it and really hold your feet to the fire and keep yourself accountable. So thank you very much.
Thank you. So, I think the biggest changes that the biggest impact we can have is working on a larger scale with policy changes. But absent that, it's great to individually do what we can. So, yeah, I am also a bit of a hoarder. I'm saving things sometimes that I don't even know what they could possibly be used for, but maybe one day there will be an art project. So, but we've put solar panels on the house. We have heat pumps that we put in a few years ago. I have a composter in the back. I hang out my laundry to dry whenever possible. Constantly washing out little plastic Ziploc bags, and trying to remember to bring Tupperware to restaurants, and buying secondhand clothes, and participating in, there's a few buy nothing groups here in Quincy, which is great because we often have perfectly good stuff that could be given away and other people are looking for it. But yeah, so I really do care about the environment. I was on the board of Quincy Climate Action Network. I started the Quincy Tree Alliance, and I've been endorsed by 350 Mass Action and the Environmental League of Massachusetts Action Fund. So both environmental organizations. So this is an important issue to me. Thanks.
So that concludes session 1. So please give the QCAN board about 1 minute to clean up and invite session 2 candidates to the stage. Thank you all.
All right, now we start our final portion of the night, our headliners, the at-large candidates. Thank you for taking the time to be here. Okay, once again, you're gonna get 1.5 minutes for each answer. You're gonna hear Jen's gonna have the bell down there. She has all the power. So once you hear it, make sure you wrap up quickly. So let's get started. We're gonna start with Miss Yuen. You're gonna start first on this question, okay? So I'll start answering it. Quincy was awarded a grant to study the feasibility of installing on-street EV charging stations in locations where nearby apartment dwellers lack a driveway for charging. What are your thoughts on increasing EV infrastructure in Quincy? Would you support funding the build-out of these and other charging stations once the study is complete? So we'll start with Susan and then work our way down.
Hello, I'm Ziqiang Susan Yuan. I'm a candidate for council at large. To answer your question, yes, I support funding the build-out of EV charging stations. If it's not convenient to charge, people will be discouraged from driving electric cars, especially those living in apartments without driveways. It's very inconvenient to charge EV. The city can look for public-private partnerships or grants to lower the upfront cost. Expanding clean transportation is a smart way to cut greenhouse gas emissions and build a greener future.
Okay. Hi, I'm Ali Shaughnessy, and I'm running for council at large. And yes, excuse me. Yes, I agree with putting in the EV stations in all the new development. In fact, just about every development that comes in front of us of any size, say 8 units or above, we don't have any specific size on it, but any of the larger developments, they're all asked to provide EV charging stations. I'd like to see more EV charging stations in different areas, but it's difficult to do that because you can't really find the real estate to do that, and people are just not going to give you the real estate. So it's a matter of how do you balance where to put them, who's going to pay for them. But we go for grants for this, as you already know, as the government gives us some money on it. We have the grant to study the feasibility of it, and I'm all for it. So we just got to get some money.
Hi everyone, I'm Andrew Pham. Like those who just spoke before me, I also agree with expanding our electric vehicle infrastructure. And that's where the auto industry is headed. They put significant investments in building electric vehicles, and a lot of my friends and family have gotten electric vehicles of their own, And the biggest issue is that they have to drive all the way to South Shore Plaza for a supercharger. And I think we are behind in the city for the electric vehicle charging. And I think we'll take a playbook out of Tesla's playbook, which is looking at community hubs to install these electric vehicle chargers. So we're thinking grocery stores or places that people can drive to and just leave their car there and let it charge, like Wollaston Beach.
So I'm Ann Mahoney. I'm a candidate for council at large. And I want to thank everybody for coming out tonight. It's so nice to see so many friendly faces. And I also want to thank all the candidates that are running. It's really important that we recognize that we have choice in the city of Quincy. This is an important question, and I also want to, I'm very happy that we have this feasibility study happening. We probably should have had it happening when we were starting all this development, but it's okay that we're at this stage. We should be actually making sure that when we get the feasibility study back, that the locations that we think are priorities for us to start putting these stations, the chargers, are recognized and how we're going to be able to pay for those. We are behind when it comes to this, but I believe that the feasibility study will be able to help us identify the areas that we can attack first, and then create a phased plan on how we can add on. And then there's also, of course, prioritizing the demand and the accessibility with grant opportunities, because there are grant opportunities. They may dry up. We don't know what's going to happen, whether it's at the federal or state level, but they could be drying up. So we might be missing some of those opportunities, but that doesn't mean that we shouldn't be doing it, because this is the direction that we should be going, and we need to make sure we're looking at all avenues as we approach this. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Noel DeBona, and I want to thank QCAN for hosting this tonight. I want to thank everybody who came out here tonight as well. For the last 10 years, I've been your Quincy City Councilor at large. I've served in the capacity with Joe Finn, Nina Liang, Ann Mahoney, and Scott Campbell. Nina Liang is obviously coming off, and remember, there's always 3 councilors at large, so you have to work together. Back in 2017 of May, Joe Finn, Nina Liang, and myself sat down with QCAN, and we did a resolution asking the city to put in EV charging stations, as well as a fleet of EV/electric type of vehicles. We did get some progress on this, and we're always working to get better. In the new Kilroy Square parking garage, we have those installed in there. We had to push from the city council level. Also, I would like to add that when we do resolutions on the city council, you want your colleagues to be on board with it. And this was a 9-0 vote. So I know there's a misconception out there. They're all voting together. These type of resolutions that I bring forward, and I have a big packet of them if anybody wants them after this candidates night, is you want your colleagues to be on board and be supportive of what you're bringing forward on the city council. I've been able to work with all the councilors over the last 10 years, and I'm looking forward to the future. I am in favor of it, and the new buildings and parking garages over by the General's Bridge is going to have those EV stations inside of them. We have to work together to get them outside the areas, maybe right outside here, Quincy Center, where the public and supermarkets and et cetera can use them. Thank you.
Thank you, Gina, and the entire board of QCAN for having us here today. My name is Scott Campbell. I am finishing my first election as a council at large, and I am in favor of this EV station. And I think that an important part to it is it's important to have its availability all throughout the city. But I think what will really get affected are the people in the neighborhoods of Wollaston, North Quincy, Quincy Point. There's different areas where if you don't have a driveway and you can't plug in, clearly that's something that it's a challenge. So the idea that we have this opportunity to seek grants, seek opportunities to go out and work with National Grid and work with the city and work with planning to make sure that we are treating it as a priority, knowing full well that we're going to have a mandate set for 2050 to make sure that we're on board for the carbon neutral and finishing up what we have here in this city, planning for the long haul of having apartments in different places that people are coming in here. I think it's important to place these charging stations where they aren't. And I know that it's one of those moments where you look for places to put them and where it's highly populated, but I think those are the people that they're going to find their way to be plugged in. What we need is for areas where it's in the most need. And I think in those neighborhoods it's important, especially when that need is that they don't have a driveway to plug in on. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, our next question, we'll start with Councillor Campbell and we'll work our way back down the line there. Would you support the adoption of the state's specialized opt-in stretch code, which would require new developers to make new construction electric ready? And now, if you do support this, I would like you to elaborate on why you support it, and what do you think the roadblocks are to adopt this, and how do you foresee overcoming them? And if you don't support it, or you're hesitant on it and unsure, tell us how you imagine Quincy will sufficiently reduce its environmental impact, given that buildings make up the majority of Quincy's greenhouse gas emissions. And every new building constructed with fossil fuel infrastructure locks us into decades more of high carbon emissions. I'll start with you.
Thank you very much. It's a great question, and I am definitely in favor of this, to review it, to look at it, and to know that this city is evolving, it is growing, and there's properties being built, there are changes that are going on regularly. And, you know, as far as how I run my view as a candidate and as a counselor, I relate it back to my own self and my own family and my own opportunities that I've faced in putting additions on my houses and making these changes, to think ahead and to look at ways that we can, you know, be prepared for solar energy. And, you know, if there are other ways that we can build in savings and be prepared for the future, I think that this is something that every opportunity that we can use to prepare these buildings for the future is what we should be looking at, because there is a ton of growth. And like I said, for us to meet those mandates of 2050, it's important that we are thinking ahead and preparing ourselves for those things that come our way. So I'm looking forward to it.
My second resolution here I have that we introduced May 15th, 2023. I co-sponsored it with Nina Liang, Ann Mahoney, James Devine, and Chuck Phelan. We introduced this to the council, basically emphasizing that the Green Communities Act of 2008, Massachusetts is required to update its building code every 3 years to ensure that new buildings are designed and constructed with energy efficient in mind. Just recently, I was at the capsulation at the Squantum Elementary School, where they're doing that particular building over to be remodeled. And we've worked really hard with Ward 6 Councilor Bill Harris to have energy efficient stretch / code, more green space on the facility, on the exact development of that. I'm in favor of this. I brought this forward at the city council level. Well, listen, it's all about working together. You have to work with other bodies of government. You have to work with local and state stakeholders. You have to work with your fellow colleagues on the council, whether it be at-large or ward councilor. And you really have to be a coalition together. And I've been willing to do that, and I'll move this forward as a stretch code. And with these new buildings that are being, I'd also like to note that I had Mass Save come in this last year and do an energy efficiency on my own house. They put in a lot of good needed stuff that updated the system. So I'm using it myself, and I'd like to move this forward at the city council, work with whomever colleagues that I'm going to work with the future. Thank you, if elected.
Thank you very much. I'm not sure why this made me think of, I definitely am in favor of this, but it made me think of a moment when I moved into my house and I was a much younger person, and I found a letter that was to my great-grandaunt from a neighbor next door, Mr. Arnold, writing to my grandaunt telling him that his brother was crazy because he was going to put concrete on the floor in the basement, and just how much money could he possibly have. He was writing that letter from a bunker in World War I to my aunt, talking about how crazy these technological changes they were having, concrete in the basement. Now, I'm not saying that's technological changes, but we have learned a lot about climate change. And the stretch code is a very important thing for constructions to be able to build this, and making sure that we're really promoting that electricity that's going into the building and getting away from fossil fuels. The things that hold us back from these, the stretch codes is, developers don't want them. It costs more money for them to do that. But training and technical assistance has to happen for our internal team within the city. That's the inspectional services team and anybody that's working, and also the planning and zoning as far as developers that are coming. Clear guidance for developers and contractors as to what the transition will be and how they can, understand from the start what's going to be expected of them, and then also exploring opportunities at the state, while they still have them, to offset the additional costs that might be associated with those implementations. It's important that we get behind this, because By reducing our reliance on those fossil fuels, it makes us more energy efficient in our community. Lowering utility costs for residents and efficiency improves everybody's positioning in Quincy. And then also forward thinking about community being aligned with our climate goals. We have to work together to get there, and we have to believe that climate change is a real thing. Oh, sorry.
QCAN threw out the fact that 54% of Quincy's greenhouse gases comes from buildings, and this specialized opt-in stretch code targets the new construction. And with the current house supply in Quincy right now, we have a lot of older homes that need to be fixed and retrofitted to accommodate more efficient energy efficiency. But the building stretch code has already been adopted by more than 50 municipalities. Among them are Somerville, Brockton, Cambridge, kind of similar to Quincy. So if they could do it, we can definitely adopt it here. And I would rather take a phased approach for this because, like Ann said, a lot of developers are against it because of the high cost of construction. But if we target the multifamily constructions, we can actually spread that cost out per unit, and it could be a feasible adoption as part of our climate policy.
Okay, so my answer on this is going to be kind of two-phased, and you're going to think that sounds a little contradictory. So first of all, I am in favor of adopting procedures and put in place when the developers come in and we question them in the planning board. It's just going to be an all-electric building. It's almost, the question, it never goes out that we don't ask it. They don't leave the room without us asking that. What makes me nervous about this, so let me understand this. We want to go all-electric buildings. So that really doesn't give, if someone comes, electric ready, okay, all for it, absolutely. But we have to understand, our country, we all recognize the fact that we have climate change. I recognize that completely. And I'm for electric-ready buildings. But I also like the idea that if I'm going to come into the city and I'm going to spend $450,000 for a condominium, electric-ready, terrific. But I'd like to know, do I have the option? Can I have a gas stove? It's efficient. It's clean. Yes, you're right about fossil fuel. But the whole country itself isn't really ready yet. In fact, the whole world isn't really ready yet because they don't take it seriously enough. And I'm all for it. I want to take it seriously. But they have rolling brownouts in California. They have rolling brownouts down in Texas. You say, well, it creates more fossil fuel. Well, at the other end of the plug, there's a fossil fuel plant. Do I have to stop now? I really don't want to stop now.
You can use
Oh, can I use your time? You're a sweetheart, honestly. Thank you.
Hello. This is really a great learning opportunity for me. I really learned a lot from all those candidates. My answer to this is yes, I would support Quincy adopting the specialized opt-in stretch code so that new buildings are electric ready. That will save us from expensive retrofits later. Invest upfront and benefit long term. That's what smart people do. To make sure our building department is supported, I would back training for inspectors and provide clear guidance for developers so it's easy for everybody to follow.
Can I use some of her time? Thank you.
So our next question, we're actually going to start with you, Mr. Shaughnessy. Oh, sorry. Thank you. We will start with Mr. Shaughnessy on this question, and then go to Ms. Yuen, and then Mr. Pham, and then all the way back down this way. So uniform trash and recycling barrels with locking lids would stop garbage from blowing down our streets on trash day, into the ocean, our beaches, and our marshes. We've all seen it. These barrels would also reduce rodent issues. For the same reason, locking barrels or big belly barrels are needed in our parks and green spaces, along with recycling barrels. Do you support issuing standardized locking barrels for individual households, for our parks? How can we overcome the roadblocks that are preventing the city from making this happen? And we'll start with you, Mr. Shaughnessy.
Well, I got to tell you, I'm not an expert on universal locking trash bins. But the first thing I could think of is I like the idea that you can have it locked so that you don't have the rodent problems or you help prevent some rodent problems. But what do we do on trash day? Do we have the technology today, instead of having a universal lock, that perhaps maybe we could have a magnet on the actual bin itself, so that when the trash truck comes in, or here in Quincy, they actually physically bring it over to the trash truck and then it tips it up. But maybe there can be a magnet on that, so it's not necessarily a lock per se. Because if there's a lock, it's going to slow down the trash pickup procedure. If we could put a magnet on it, then you could lock the thing, it goes next to the truck, it has a negative charge, the magnet releases, it dumps the trash just as fast. So I guess, yes, I'm for locking trash bins, but we need the technology to make sure, right? So how do we unlatch it? Does the guy have to unlatch it or the girl who's ever doing the trash? Okay, I'm all for it.
I support the standardized locking trash and recycling barrels for both households and the parks. When I locked down doors, several residents brought up this idea, especially to deal with rodent problems, which can pose serious health risks. Locked barrels would also help keep our street cleaner. If the city does more outreach and education, I believe most residents will support it and even be willing to chip in to cover the cost of locking barrels. Many people are generous. Some might even donate to help others who can't afford it. The city can also partner with the local business and seek grants. We should use every resources we have to keep Quincy clean, healthy, and beautiful.
So for the trash bins, Quincy has a really good trash and recycling program in the sense that we can leave stuff on the curb and they'll take it away. And I think a lot of towns and cities envy that. And the towns that do have matching trash bins, from a practical approach, I don't think that Quincy should be mandating every household to have matching lock trash bins, only because many of us already have trash bins, and to discard our current trash bins, that will fill up our landfills, and then we'll have to try to figure out where to put the new trash bins. However, there are houses that do not even use a trash bin, and that would be a perfect example to mandate them to use a trash bin. And in this case, we would put it on the ward councilors to get the neighbors to I don't want to say snitch on the residents that do not use a trash barrel. Then the city will happily provide a trash barrel, because from just everything that just attracts rodents, and that would solve like the trash from being going into our oceans. Thank you.
Everybody wants just to grab every mic I can get. So yes, I actually do support standardizing and having the trash barrels for households. We have been talking about this for a really long time, and I know for as many people we meet at the doors that want it, there are a few, and I wouldn't say the majority, that don't want it, because change is also fearful. So people don't want change. We have something, it's the way I've done it. I remember when we were getting rid of using plastic bags at the store, my father was he loved those plastic bags, because he would get the plastic bags and put them in the bathroom and put them everywhere. And, he was really mad at me. He was like, I can't believe you're for that. I'm like, it's actually a good thing, Dad, and you can still get they'll have recycled bags. But when it comes to this, it's a bigger issue than just how we're putting our trash out. It's the rodent issue that we're having, and every community's having it. It's not just here in Quincy. But we've done everything that we possibly can, and this is a natural step that we would go back and actually start having locked barrels so that we can put them out. It won't take any more time for the trash people to pick it up. And we can actually do it in a phased out or rolled out approach, where it might be the neighborhoods that have the higher impact of issues, and roll them out slowly. Maybe I think back when we were talking about it, we were going to buy the barrels for each individual household. I'm not sure where we stand on that, but there are ways that we can do this. This could be mitigation money for some of the big developments that are coming in to be able to, mitigate some of the problems that we're having in our neighborhoods when it comes to trash. And I'm sorry, but rodents are a big problem. I don't think anybody here can say that they love their pet rat in their backyard, because that's not what we want, right? But at the end of the day, you know, I don't even know what's knocking the stuff over in my yard because they're bigger than I want them to imagine what's out there. So, but yes, I agree that we need to do this.
Like Ian said, this has been a question that QCAN has asked every time I've had the candidates night here. It's from the very beginning 10 years ago. What I like to do is I like to go onto the ground and get people's input on this. Now, the biggest issue that I had on the street was, well, I already have a type of barrel, and you're gonna make me go out and buy another barrel or not use this barrel that I already bought for $120. That was the big issue. So to mitigate that or to solve that issue is those type of barrels need to be grandfathered in. If people went out and bought these barrels, which are heavy duty, which I have and I use every week out there, and it's a really good shut one, you can put a little thing on it, is folks need to be able, if they bought those and they spent money on them, that they could be able to grandfather those in. Somehow having some type of system where people, and then have a discount system using some type of grant fund for the folks that don't have it, and they can opt in if they want to. To go out and start taxing the taxpayer out there, I don't know if that's the issue. That's the issue that I found out there. Why are you gonna tax me on this when I already have a barrel in use? So that was the stuff I got, the information I got door to door. And since COVID had happened, the increase in inflation of price had changed a lot of dynamics of that particular issue. I walked on the streets and I asked a lot of folks about that over the years, and that was the consensus that I was hearing. If it's not something that you can tax somebody on and you can voluntarily do it, I'm all for it. Patriot Ledger, get that right.
I think, like everything here tonight, everything is about common sense. And I think using our collective brains to just say there's never going to be a perfect solution, there's never going to be anything that we're going to look at and say that's how we should run it. And, you know, if we can take ideas from all across the table, this is really kind of one of those no-brainer things that we just got to figure out how best to roll it out, even if it's a pilot program or some type of area that is in higher need for rodent work or however it may be. You know, there's little things that we can all do every single day that will make a difference. And I think that when you see what the cumulative effect comes with not being able to have the trash stay in the trash barrel for a period of time, that ends up in the catch basins. That makes it more work for the cleanup and the DPW, and it's a cumulative effect that happens. And isn't that the way climate is? It's a cumulative effect, and you know, you don't have to know or understand or believe all of the facts out there to know that there is a change that's going on, and this city is largely surrounded by water, and those changes that do happen, they're affecting all of us. And I think that if there is ways that we can take the simple steps of just creating an opportunity to have recycle bins and trash, if that's going to help in the long run, I say go for it.
Thank you. So last question here. We're going to start with Councilor DeBona, go to Councilor Campbell, and then Ms. Mahoney, and then back down. Okay. Given that there has been little policy progress in climate and environment in Quincy over the past council terms, so the past 2 years, do you plan to prioritize climate action if elected? And if yes, how and what?
I think the biggest thing that I've gone through is the storms of 2018 in Howes Neck, Post Island Road, which right behind the camera got affected, and the Carters as well, very affected. I was out there right during the storm, after the storm on the premises. I brought forth a lot of resolutions, and we did a lot of seawall repair for the resiliency of it. But I brought it forth a November 13 of 2018 pumping equipment and pumping stations resolution, particularly on the different areas of the city. Also a Citizens of Quincy Community Emergency Response Team, CERT. And we've installed these over at the Koch building. But these are the type of resiliencies. There was an area that they were going to do the seawalls at 4 feet. They opt to do it at 2 feet. So there's still 2 more feet that we could go up if we have to in certain sections of the city. Now, you're taking away waterfront property, so particular areas of that seawall, folks did not want it. So they went with the 2. I had a brother and a sister on a certain street that one wanted it and one didn't. and they lived at 2 different houses, and they were fighting about it. They went with the 2 feet. But anyways, long story short is resiliency. It could happen again. If the surge is high enough and it's enough, it's going to get over the wall. And if it gets over the wall, it has to find its way back outside with proper mitigation, outfall piping, making sure it's clean, making sure we have proper pumping stations. This has been an issue that we've had across the city since 1978, the blizzard of 1978. I've talked to a lot of folks. So I'm in favor over the next 2 years, if elected, to continue to work with my colleagues to mitigate a lot of these issues that we've taken care of, but there's still work to be done. Thank you.
I think the short answer is yes. I think it's something that, I had it as part of my answer on the last question, is that I think it just takes everybody coming to the table. I think that there are things that we can be doing every single day and that we should be doing every single day. I know every single time that I put the tissue box not in the right bin, my wife has it out for me on that. So we pay close attention to that. And doing that at home on the council, we can affect greater change. I think that there's an opportunity. There are small things that we can do, and there are bigger things that we can do. We're building this MBTA garage down on Bergen Parkway, that's one of those ones where if we're not exploring electric buses, we should be looking at that. If there are just different small things that we can do every single day. I know I had a conversation with Larry Cretion many years ago, and that was one thing that he said: we're not going to fix everything, but we can fix what's in front of us and what's around us. And as a city councilor, I can tell you that it will always be a priority. I live in House Neck. I was part of those floods when they came up. They got 2 houses away from my house, and it was a scary, scary time, especially with 2 young kids. So, I'm your neighbor, and I'm someone who deals with a lot of the same things that everybody's dealing with at different parts of the city. And I can assure you that I will do everything in my part to make sure I represent you as your city council at large in every possible way I can, especially when it comes to the environment. So thank you for your time.
So I want to thank everybody for their time tonight. And when it comes to what we can do better, we can do a lot of things better in Quincy. One of the things that happened in the last 2 years is we didn't have any resolutions brought up at the city council. We also have city council meetings that are getting canceled or only lasting 15 minutes. There's plenty of work to be done in the city, but we're just not actually looking to what needs to be done or engaging our community about what the needs are. QCAN has brought up some incredible questions for us this evening. We could spend a whole year just focusing on every single council meeting with one of those questions, just one of those questions. And then the other thing is about really engaging the community and making sure people understand. We don't utilize QATV enough. It used to be in the old days, not that long ago, where city departments would actually go over to QATV and provide information to the constituents so they would know what's going on. Currently, we don't have anything happening like that anymore, but what we do have is we have communications coming from the mayor's office, strictly from the mayor's office, letting us know what is being done. And that's a one-sided conversation. I said this before, there's 47% of our community that didn't agree with the last election. That's okay. I don't have any bitterness to that. That's perfectly fine. The mayor is the mayor. But we do have to work for everybody in our community, and it can't just be one-sided. So when it comes to these issues, it's about bringing people together and making those discussions happen. I will give the applaud where it needs to be. While I was in the city council, one of the things that was brought to the council and the mayor's office was composting. We did put that together. I worked with Matt. That's how I met Maggie McKee and the other people that I got to meet. So there are great opportunities that are there, and I think we can work with the administration as well as the city council and all of the great community activists that are out here to get these things done.
So I work in Seaport, and a lot of the new buildings that they put up, they have that big shiny symbol, that LEED certified symbol. And I was really disappointed when the public safety building, where it was $285 million, it's not LEED certified. 285. So if elected on here, I would actually pursue the climate change by building up our coastal resiliency. I was reading into the different types of programs that Boston was doing, and one of it was they were installing oyster reefs and rehabbing certain reefs, and it's one adult oyster filters up to 50 gallons of water. And knowing how dirty Wollaston Beach is, this could be a great resource to us. And understanding that we share that piece of land that reaches to Moon Island Way, Boston, Boston's already been awarded that grant to install these oyster reefs. I would make that call to Mayor Wu and say, hey, can we use some of that too, to build up this oyster reef? Because the construction cost between the seawalls and the oyster reefs reduced the waves up to 30 to 50% of the wave energy. It could do a really good job of building up our coast.
So I understand that the question is, what would we do to help prevent, because we have climate change coming, and it's you can't deny it. And then we get into like this political whole like promotion thing. I don't understand that. But anyhow, I live out in Squantum. I've experienced flooding many times. Before they had the causeway built, of course, we couldn't get out to Squantum, an hour on one side of the tide or an hour on the other side of the tide. And then a few years back over in Essex Street I was living in, one winter, the house got flooded 3 times. And on the 3rd time it got flooded, I figured out a way to prevent it. I took sandbags. I packed the sandbags around the back side of the house where the entrance to the cellar was. I put a generator up on top of the deck. The sandbag was about 4 feet tall, all the way around the entrance going down to the stairs, and I put a pump in there. And then as the water came up, went over, the pump pumped it out. And what is that? That's a dike. Now this may sound like really crazy. The flooding's gonna come, it's gonna come forever now. It's climate change. The icebergs are melting, the seas are rising. We're looking at, let's raise Morrissey Boulevard. Let's raise this. Folks, that's not gonna make a difference. What's gonna make a difference is a global action, and now let's not even go globally. Let's go Massachusetts. Why aren't we talking about putting a dike from Winthrop over to Hull? And then when floods are coming, close the dike. It would prevent flooding in East Boston, Boston, Quincy, Hingham, all the way around. After the storm's gone, open up the dike. Seems pretty simple. They do it in Holland all the time. Oh, sorry.
I plan to prioritize climate action with residents' support. Outreach and education are key to getting resident support for climate action. We should use real-life examples to show how protecting the environment directly affects our lives. For instance, residents who experience flooding during heavy rain will understand that reducing permeable ground through improper development makes runoff faster and overwhelms the drainage system. This helps people see why keeping green spaces and requiring new development to follow building codes is important. With residents' support, we can push for practical climate solutions like expanding recycling and composting, using EVs, and requiring energy-efficient building codes. I want to work closely with residents, businesses, and the city departments to make these solutions achievable.
So that concludes our questions for our candidates. Thank you all for coming. We really appreciate it. And thank everyone here for coming to join us. This will be on QATV and eventually our website as well. If you haven't done already, you can join QCAN over at the table with Christian or sign up for our newsletter, which is only every few months. There's also a couple of ballot initiatives over there that you might be interested in concerning climate on the state level. And then Brandon has one more thing he'd like to say. And
one other thing that's here, Query Quincy Asian Resource Initiative is also here. Nina over there, she can raise her hand. She has a voter pledge for everyone to sign. So last municipal election, that was, so 2023 was 17% voter turnout. So very, very low. So we're trying to get that up higher. Obviously, we're all here tonight because we'll be voting for these counselor candidates. So if you want to sign the pledge and make sure to hold yourself accountable for the election in November, please feel free to see her. Otherwise, I'd love to give a huge thank you to all the counselors who gave their time tonight. Jeff, thanks so much. And thank you also to my fellow QCAM board members for helping. Gina did like over 50% of all this, and this would have not happened without her. So thank you so much, Gina. Okay. Yeah, and thank you all for coming out. Have a great evening.